Jackie Chan woke up in a hotel room in 2012, and for a long moment, he couldn't move. His back had locked during the night, muscles seized from decades of impacts and falls. He was 58 years old, and his body was finally giving clear signals it had been hinting at for years. Stop. He lay there in pain, thinking about the stunt he was supposed to film that day. Nothing extreme by his standards, just a fight sequence that required some falls and rolls. And he felt something he'd never felt before. Not fear of the stunt itself, but exhaustion at the prospect of doing it, of pushing through pain one more time, of forcing his body to do things it no longer wanted to do. He'd been making films for over 50 years. He'd broken nearly every bone. He'd achieved more than he'd ever imagined possible. And lying there unable to move without pain, Jackie seriously considered whether it was finally time to stop. Not just this film, everything. Complete retirement. Let his body rest. Enjoy the wealth and success he'd earned. Stop breaking himself for audiences who might not even appreciate the sacrifice anymore. He could announce his retirement, make one final film, go out with dignity rather than declining slowly until his body failed completely. For 20 minutes, Jackie lay there seriously contemplating ending his career. Then he got up, took painkillers, did stretches until his back loosened enough to function, and went to set. He filmed the sequence, and he kept making movies. To understand why Jackie considered retirement seriously in his late 50s and early 60s, you need to understand the accumulated physical damage. By 2012, Jackie had been doing dangerous stunts for 40 years. The injuries weren't just broken bones that healed. They were permanent changes to his body's structure and function. His skull had a plastic plug from the 1986 fracture. His hearing in one ear was compromised. His ankles, knees, and back had chronic problems from repeated impacts. He had arthritis in joints that had been broken and healed imperfectly. Every morning started with pain. Every movement required conscious effort to work through discomfort that was now constant rather than occasional. The specific pain varied daily but never disappeared. Some mornings his back would be the problem, stiffness and sharp pains when he bent or twisted. Other days his knees, damaged from decades of hard landings, would make stairs difficult. His hands and fingers, broken multiple times, ached constantly and had limited flexibility. He'd developed the chronic pain that many athletes experience, the body's permanent reminder of years of trauma, damage that can be managed but never truly healed. Jackie had always been able to push through pain through sheer willpower. When he was younger, injuries healed relatively quickly, and he could count on his body recovering between films. But by his late 50s, recovery was slower and less complete. An injury that would have healed in weeks when he was 30 now took months and never fully resolved. His body was accumulating damage faster than it could repair, creating a downward spiral where each new injury worsened the baseline condition, rather than being an isolated incident that healed and returned him to normal. The psychological toll was equally significant. Jackie had built his entire identity around physical capability. He was the man who could do anything, who never gave up, who pushed past limits others accepted. But aging was forcing him to accept limitations he couldn't overcome through determination. Stunts he could have done easily at 40 were now impossible. Sequences that would have taken 1 or 2 takes now required careful planning and multiple attempts because his body couldn't execute movements with the precision it once had. This wasn't failure of will, it was biological reality. And accepting that reality meant accepting that he was no longer the person he'd been, that time was doing what injuries and pain never could, actually stopping him. There was also exhaustion from the relentless work schedule. Jackie had been making films constantly for 5 decades, often working on multiple projects simultaneously, traveling constantly, maintaining a pace that would have burned out most people decades earlier. He'd sacrificed family relationships, personal life, health, and rest for his career. And at 58, he was tired in a deep way that sleep couldn't fix. Not just physically tired, existentially tired. Tired of the pressure, the expectations, the need to keep proving himself, the treadmill of constant work that never allowed real rest or reflection. In interviews during this period, Jackie talked about retirement openly for the first time. He'd mentioned that he was getting old, that his body couldn't do what it used to, that maybe it was time to step back. These comments generated headlines, Jackie Chan considering retirement, and created speculation about when he'd make his final film. But even as Jackie talked about stopping, he kept working, kept making films, kept pushing his body. The retirement he discussed never actually happened. Part of what kept him working was financial, though not in the simple sense of needing money. Jackie was wealthy, had more than enough to live comfortably forever, but he had ongoing financial obligations, supporting his stunt team, maintaining his businesses, funding charitable work. Retirement would mean restructuring these commitments, potentially letting people down who depended on him. Jackie felt responsible for the ecosystem he'd created, and walking away would affect dozens or hundreds of people whose livelihoods were connected to his work. But the deeper reason was psychological. Jackie's entire identity was built around being Jackie Chan, the action star. Without that, who was he? What would he do with himself? He'd never developed interests or passions outside filmmaking. He had no hobbies, no retirement dreams of things he wanted to do instead of work. Film was all he knew, all he'd ever done. The prospect of stopping completely was terrifying because it meant facing an identity void, being alive but without the purpose and structure that work provided. There was also the fear of irrelevance. As long as Jackie kept making films, he remained Jackie Chan, the legend, the active star. If he retired, he'd become former action star Jackie Chan, someone people talked about in past tense, has been trading on Old Glory. The entertainment industry moves on quickly, and retired stars are forgotten unless they do something to remain visible. Jackie had seen other action stars retire and fade from public consciousness. The idea of being remembered but no longer relevant was deeply uncomfortable. So instead of retiring completely, Jackie adjusted. He started taking fewer physically demanding roles, doing fewer of his own stunts, accepting that his films would be different from his peak years. He directed more and starred less, shifting from being the primary physical performer to being the creative force behind productions. He took roles in ensemble casts where he didn't have to carry entire films physically. He accepted using stunt doubles for sequences his body truly couldn't handle anymore. This gradual scaling back allowed Jackie to continue working without completely destroying his body, but it also meant accepting a decline that was visible to audiences. His recent films show an older man, slower, less capable physically. Fans who remember peak Jackie from the 1980s and 90s can see the difference clearly. Some appreciate seeing him still working, respecting the dedication. Others wish he'd retired at his peak rather than continuing past the point where he can perform at the level that made him legendary. Jackie himself seems conflicted about this. He's made comments suggesting he knows his recent work doesn't match his classic films, that he understands he's operating on reputation more than current capability, but he also expresses satisfaction in still being able to work, still being Jackie Chan, even if he's a diminished version. The work provides structure and purpose, keeps him relevant, gives him reason to get up in the morning despite the pain. The question of when to retire has no clear answer. Athletes face similar decisions: continue past your peak and risk tarnishing your legacy, or retire at the top and wonder if you could have kept going. Jackie has chosen to continue, prioritizing ongoing work over preserving a perfect legacy. This reflects his personality. He's never been about preserving image or maintaining mystique. He's about doing, working, persisting regardless of circumstances. There have been multiple farewell announcements over the past decade. Jackie has said various films would be his last action film, his last stunt-heavy role, his final time doing specific dangerous sequences. But these farewells keep not being final. He announces retirement from a specific type of work, then a year later does that work again in a new film. It's become a pattern that makes some people skeptical when Jackie talks about stopping. He said it before and never actually stopped. Part of this is that Jackie genuinely intends to stop when he makes these announcements, but then new opportunities arise, or he feels physically better than expected, or he gets bored with reduced activity and he accepts one more role. The retirement decision isn't made once and executed, it's made repeatedly, and each time circumstances change and he chooses to keep going. The impact on his legacy is complicated. On one hand, Jackie's refusal to fully retire shows remarkable dedication and work ethic. proves he genuinely loves what he does rather than just doing it for money or fame. On the other hand, his recent work is undeniably weaker than his classic films, and continuing to make mediocre movies dilutes the impact of his masterpieces. Film scholars and critics debate whether Jackie's late career work enhances or diminishes his overall legacy. For Jackie personally, the continuing to work seems to be about more than just the work itself. It's about not giving up, about maintaining the identity he's built, about proving to himself that age and injury haven't completely defeated him. Even diminished, even in pain, even producing work that's not his best, Jackie continues because stopping would feel like surrender. And surrender has never been something Jackie does. Now at 70, Jackie is still making films, still talking about projects, still working despite his body's clear signals that he should stop. The retirement that seemed imminent a decade ago keeps being postponed. Maybe there will never be a clean retirement, no final film or grand farewell. Maybe Jackie will just keep working at reduced capacity until his body absolutely refuses, until he literally can't perform anymore. That wouldn't be the dignified exit some think he deserves, but it would be authentically Jackie, pushing forward regardless, refusing to accept limitations, continuing until continuation becomes impossible. The story of Jackie considering retirement, but never actually retiring, reveals something fundamental about him. Work isn't just what he does, it's who he is. Without it, he doesn't know how to be himself. So he continues in pain, past his peak, producing work that doesn't match his legendary status, because the alternative, stopping, resting, accepting that his career is over, is psychologically impossible. The body may be failing, but the will to continue remains unbroken. And as long as that will persist, Jackie will keep making films, keep pushing through pain, keep being Jackie Chan, even when being Jackie Chan means accepting a version of himself that's diminished from what he once was. It's simultaneously inspiring and sad. The refusal to quit proving both remarkable strength and inability to accept inevitable decline. But it's Jackie's choice, his life, his body, his legacy. And he's chosen to continue, whatever the cost, because stopping isn't something he knows how to do.